The Meghan Markle was on my flight, and she's so beautiful in person. She was so sweet.
Something is wrong with this woman in a big way.
You think you know Meghan Markle, but what I'm about to reveal will change everything. For years, she's been the face of polished perfection, royal title, designer dresses, curated podcasts, and soft-focus PR photos. But what if that image wasn't just exaggerated? What if it was fiction?
Meghan Markle was the worst celebrity they had ever had to serve.
The story you're about to hear didn't happen in a palace or on a red carpet. It happened in the cramped aisle of a British Airways flight 30,000 feet in the sky, where the Duchess's mask didn't just slip, it shattered.
She needs us to love her, so she will do whatever it takes, and she doesn't know how to make us love her.
According to crew members on board, what unfolded next left them stunned, disturbed, and scrambling to manage a full-blown meltdown. All because Meghan Markle got handed an economy seat. But this story isn't about legroom, it's about control, obsession, and the desperate unraveling of a brand built on image. And trust me, this is just the beginning. The moment the cabin lights dimmed, Meghan reportedly stood frozen, staring at her boarding pass as if it had personally insulted her.
The staff member told me that when Harry was not in direct earshot or in the vicinity, she was like a different person.
Witnesses say it was like watching someone glitch, completely stunned that she wasn't being escorted through a velvet curtain into a first-class pod. One British Airways insider described it as the most bizarre silence they'd ever seen. She blinked at that ticket like it was a betrayal. No champagne, no curtain, no curated privacy, just cramped seats and crying babies.
Here's the thing, when you reveal everything, you lose your mystique. You become noise. People don't pay attention.
Meghan had been placed in economy, and that wasn't just inconvenient. To her, it was offensive. Now, most people would suck it up, settle in, maybe fire off a few complaints privately. Not Meghan. According to multiple crew members, she spent the first hour of the flight refusing to sit down, standing in the aisle, clearly agitated, flipping through her magazine like a bored duchess stranded at a gas station. But here's where it starts to get disturbing. They say Meghan didn't just act entitled, she acted detached from everything, including her own son. That's right, Archie was there. And reportedly, Meghan didn't so much as glance at him the entire flight. Let that sink in.
She's reportedly bullied virtually everybody who's ever worked for her. She's obsessed with her own ego and playing the victim.
This wasn't a stranger's kid crying 3 rows back. This was her son. And still, one steward said Meghan acted like he didn't exist. No smiles, no soothing, no interaction at all. Just staff scrambling to bottle feed, rock, and calm him down, while Meghan stared off into the middle distance like she was waiting for room service. It was cold, one crew member said. I've seen celebrities act rude before, but this felt different, like she was playing a part that no longer worked, and didn't know what to do. You're probably thinking, maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe there was a reason. But if that's the case, how do you explain what happened next? Just days after the meltdown, a TikTok suddenly surfaced.
The Meghan Markle was on my flight, and she's so beautiful in person. She was so sweet.
An American Airlines hostess, bright smile, gushing tone, claiming Meghan had flown on her flight and left her a handwritten thank you note. She's so beautiful in person, the woman said. She complimented my nails. I'm crying. The timing was too perfect. The lighting, suspiciously clean. The handwriting, a little too practiced. And then, bam, featured in People magazine within 48 hours. Coincidence? No chance. Because here's the thing, American Airlines has strict policies. Staff are not supposed to film, post, or share stories about celebrity passengers, especially not handwritten notes, which are considered private communication. But in this case, no one said a word. The video stayed up, the press ran with it, and the response from Meghan's team? Total silence, not denial, not confirmation, just strategic silence, like they knew what the video was really for.
She also said she loved my nails. The Queen says she likes them.
One airline source didn't hold back. It was staged, full stop. This was PR damage control disguised as a random fan moment. Actually, hold on, because it gets even weirder. This wasn't the first time Meghan's had drama with transportation. According to a senior film crew member who worked with her in her Suits era, travel tantrums were her signature. She'd reportedly demand first-class seats on low-budget indie shoots, including airlines that didn't even offer first class. When told politely it wasn't available, she'd allegedly throw full diva fits, shouting, stomping, even suggesting private jet options on films that couldn't afford bottled water. It was like she thought flying economy would kill her image, the crew member said. But the irony is, it's the behavior that's destroying it now.
She knows she's not being filmed, so her real true self comes out in these intimate moments.
And just when you think it can't get more calculated, enter the glitter pen. Yep, the TikTok hostess held up Meghan's note, which included not just her thanks, but a cute compliment, in perfect cursive, with no smudges, no crumpling, no folding. It looked like it had been written for the camera, and the fact that it showed up on social media just as whispers of Meghan's meltdown began circulating among crew forums, that's not a coincidence. That's a media fire extinguisher. But this time, the fire's too big to smother with thank yous. Let's back up for a second. Meghan has built an empire on image. Calm mother, loving wife, thoughtful duchess. But according to insiders across multiple industries, royal staff, film crews, airline teams, it's all performance. One British Airways attendant said it felt like watching someone rehearse in real time. She was sweet, but only when Harry was near. The moment he left her side, cold, like she didn't need to pretend anymore. That's not kindness, that's strategy. And it's the kind of pattern you can't ignore forever. Even her own mother, Doria, seems to be pulling back. In a recent interview, Meghan casually dropped a comment that stunned listeners. Doria had gone to a Beyoncé concert and hadn't told her. She just went, alone. No invite, no post, no pictures, no mention. For a woman who once plastered her mother's face across interviews and press releases, this shift didn't go unnoticed. It felt like a fracture, one source said, like even Doria's tired of the performance. And honestly, can you blame her? Because this isn't just one story anymore, it's a pattern. From the palace to press tours to passenger flights, the stories don't just match, they echo. Meghan being sweet when it's convenient, cold when it's not, demanding upgrades, expecting the world to bow before her, and when it doesn't, she either vanishes or she retaliates with a staged redemption arc.
She had any respect for the institution she married into, she'd stop using it like a content farm.
The thank you notes, the airport hugs, the carefully timed paparazzi strolls, it's like watching a crisis manager direct a play in real time. Let's not forget the Disney moment. Remember that awkward red carpet clip where Prince Harry's caught pitching Meghan's voiceover skills to a Disney executive? Smiling, nodding, practically selling her brand like a late-night commercial. And Meghan? Just behind him, eyes locked like she was watching a deal close. That wasn't a husband helping a wife. That was a PR team in heels. Because for Meghan, image isn't just part of the game, it is the game. And the moment that image cracks, she scrambles to patch it with glitter, grace, and viral fluff. But here's where the audience gets tired, because behind every filtered thank you, there's a flight attendant who's been ignored, a staffer who was silenced, a baby who cried, and the louder Meghan performs the part of perfect duchess, the more obvious the disconnection becomes. That British Airways flight wasn't just a PR nightmare, it was a live demonstration of everything people have quietly whispered for years. The entitlement, the control, the complete disconnect between who she says she is and how she really treats people when no one's watching. And let's talk about that silence, because after the flight meltdown, after the TikTok note went viral, after Archie's name trended on Twitter for all the wrong reasons, what did Meghan do? Nothing. No statement, no apology, just more photos of curated chicken coops, picnic blankets, and emoji-covered kids. A fake sense of normalcy pushed hard enough to make you question if any of it's real. Because that's the game, right? When the real story gets out, distract with something shinier. But the cracks are showing. Hard. And not just with the public. Industry insiders are talking. Former stylists, makeup artists, even Uber drivers. People who once praised her charm now admit they were told what to say, what to post.
They're currently bombarding the tabloid machine with heartwarming snapshots of their perfect California lives.
One Hollywood source said, if you compliment her publicly, you get invited back. If not, you're ghosted, or worse, labeled a bully. Think about that. She didn't just curate her public image. She curated the people around her like a mood board. And the second you didn't fit the aesthetic, you were gone. Now let's go back to that flight one more time. Multiple crew members said Meghan acted like the plane was her personal throne room, refusing to make eye contact, dismissing requests, snapping at staff who dared to ask her to buckle her seatbelt. She acted like she owned the airline, one attendant said. It was like watching royalty trapped in a reality check. But the most disturbing part? The baby. Crew say Archie cried more than once. Not just fussy baby cries, but distressed, inconsolable sobs. And Meghan reportedly didn't even turn her head. And here's the dagger. One flight attendant, who had never spoken publicly before, said something that chills me every time I hear it. It wasn't that she didn't care, it was like she didn't notice, like she had trained herself to ignore him unless the camera was rolling. Read that again. Not care, not even notice, like Archie was just part of the set dressing. And in that moment, the royal brand Meghan spent years building, it collapsed under its own weight. Now look, parenting is hard, travel is stressful, no one is perfect. But this wasn't exhaustion, this wasn't overwhelm, this was something colder, more calculated. Because when you spend your life pretending to be the ideal mother, the moment someone sees you slip, even for a second, it sticks. And for Meghan, who built her post-palace brand on cozy California motherhood, that kind of slip could be catastrophic. So what happens next? That's where things get even more bizarre. Because as the backlash picked up speed, faster than a jet at takeoff, guess what magically appeared on her social feeds? Disneyland photos. Archie and Lilibet, emoji-faced and carefully posed, Harry and Meghan hand in hand, Doria in the background. It was supposed to scream, "See, we're fine!" But instead, it reeked of overcorrection, a PR stunt dressed as a family outing, and fans noticed. Why now? One tweet asked. Why this? Who brings their whole family to Disneyland when the internet is questioning your parenting? And that's the thing, if it was authentic, people would have bought it. But when you time your wholesome family trip exactly 72 hours after being accused of ignoring your son on a flight, it stops feeling sweet. It starts feeling staged. And the public, who once gave Meghan the benefit of the doubt, are starting to turn. Not because they want to see her fail, but because they're tired of being played.
It doesn't get better, it gets worse. Something is wrong with this woman in a big way.
Even Harry, some say, is struggling behind the scenes. Multiple royal insiders have claimed that he's begun pulling back from joint PR appearances, choosing separate cars, arriving late, letting Meghan speak alone. It's subtle, but it's there. And if true, it's the biggest twist yet, because for so long, Harry was her shield, her public defender, the man who said, "If you hurt her, you hurt me." But now he seems quieter, more distant. And sources say even he's starting to ask the questions the rest of us have been whispering for years. So where does that leave Meghan? On paper, she's still winning. Book deals, brand deals, Netflix promises. But behind the scenes, her approval ratings are dropping, her podcast was canned, her Hollywood friends have gone silent. And the public? They're watching closely, watching to see if she acknowledges what happened on that flight, watching to see if Archie ever becomes more than a blurred emoji, watching to see if the cracks in her perfect image become too wide to patch. Because here's the thing about masks. Once they slip, you can't pretend they never did, because behind that slipped mask is something even more unsettling: strategy. According to multiple sources across multiple industries, Meghan doesn't simply have mood swings, she has an on-off switch. One flight crew member said it best. She's not rude all the time, she's polite when it serves her, but the moment she doesn't need you anymore, you disappear, like a scene partner whose line just ended. Let that sink in. Not random rudeness, intentional performance, calculated kindness, a script, rehearsed and repeated until she gets what she wants. And maybe you're thinking, okay, so she's demanding, so she expects luxury, so what? But this isn't about luxury. This is about someone who built her brand on empathy only to treat actual people like background props. Airline staff, assistants, nannies, former coworkers. The number of people who've stepped forward to quietly say, "She's not who you think she is rising. And they're not tabloids. They're real professionals, working people, people who had nothing to gain, except peace of mind from finally telling the truth. And the stories are eerily consistent. Meghan reportedly refusing to speak to staff unless it's through a third party, refusing eye contact with waiters, giving direction only when she's being photographed. One former makeup artist said, "She treated me like her therapist until she didn't need me, then I never heard from her again." That's not diva behavior, that's transactional. And when enough people start saying the same thing, you stop calling it gossip. You start calling it a pattern. Even former palace staff, those bound by NDAs and royal protocol, have whispered similar tales. That Meghan was charming in public and cold in private. That she demanded meetings be moved to suit her mood. That junior aides were reduced to tears. And when the media began calling her difficult, Harry didn't deny it. He blamed racism, he blamed the institution, he blamed everyone, except the one person every complaint centered around, Meghan.
Till Harry and Meghan are stripped of their royal titles, they will continue to drag it into influencer hell with hashtags and humble brag.
And look, maybe it's complicated. Maybe Meghan was under pressure. Maybe the British tabloids were vicious. But how do you explain the flight, the baby, the staged TikTok, the emotional disconnect that's now being confirmed by people in 3 separate industries? You can't. Because this isn't about one flight, it's about every decision since. And the more desperate the cover-up attempts become, the more obvious it is that something deeper is unraveling. Let's go back to Archie for a moment, because that part of the story hit people hardest. Crew members didn't just say Meghan ignored her baby, they said she disconnected entirely, that she acted as if he wasn't there. One steward said it felt inhuman, like she was actively avoiding bonding with her own son, not just cold but absent. "We've seen celebrities have tough flights," the steward said, "but never this, never someone so indifferent to their own child." And what's worse, it wasn't just one flight. Other airline staff have come forward, quietly, off record, sharing similar stories. Meghan flying with staff, but never speaking directly to them. Always on her phone, always waiting until Harry appeared to suddenly smile, touch Archie's hand, act affectionate. One crew member said, "It was like watching a scene reset. As soon as he showed up, she started playing the mom. But before that, nothing." And again, it matches what we've heard from nannies, former stylists, and even bodyguards. Actually, scratch that. It gets darker. According to one ex-bodyguard from her early Suits years, Meghan used to brief her team on how to act around her. No sudden questions, no chit-chat. If you need something, ask the assistant. This was before royalty, before Harry, before the global spotlight. And yet, the need to control her surroundings, to be handled like royalty, was already there. This wasn't transformation, it was evolution, a slow, steady build toward total image dominance. And that brings us to the real question: what happens when someone who's obsessed with control starts to lose it? The answer: overcorrection. Meghan's team has reportedly been in overdrive since the flight scandal, trying to scrub mentions of the incident online, flooding social media with positive keywords, requesting takedowns, and when that didn't work, cue the Disneyland photo dump, the jam jars, the filtered family montages, every PR trick in the influencer playbook. But here's what they forgot. Audiences are smarter now, the internet is faster, and when people smell inauthenticity, they chase it. That's why TikToks dissecting Meghan's flight behavior have racked up millions of views. That's why screenshots of old interviews are resurfacing. That's why even diehard supporters are starting to quietly unfollow. Because it's one thing to be complex, it's another to be fake. And Meghan, for all her activism and soft smiles, is starting to feel like a walking contradiction. One insider said it plainly: she's no longer the underdog, she's the brand, and the brand is failing. And maybe that's why Harry seems quieter lately, why Doria skipped joint appearances, why the Sussexes' Hollywood calendar has more gaps than bookings, because when the image starts to crack, the whole operation begins to buckle. And yet, Meghan's still playing the role, still scribbling thank you notes in cursive, still showing up at farmers markets with a camera crew accidentally catching her picking apples, still releasing lifestyle products as if the world isn't watching the walls fall down. It's exhausting. Not just for her, but for the people expected to pretend it's all still real. But the truth? It's not.
She didn't approach royal customs with curiosity or care. She dismissed them, forgetting that the tradition is the responsibility.
The carefully crafted fantasy of Meghan Markle is starting to look like just that, a fantasy. And the real Meghan, the one crew members, stylists, drivers, assistants, and even royal aides have described, she's not graceful, she's not humble, she's not warm, she's exacting, controlled, cold, strategic, and when the audience finally sees both versions side by side, only one will survive. So what does the fallout really look like? Not just from the public, but from the people who once stood behind her. Let's start with the industry. Hollywood insiders, real ones, not tabloids, have started to ghost her, quietly, strategically. One publicist, speaking anonymously, said, "It's not worth it anymore. She's unbookable, without controversy. The risk outweighs the reward." Netflix quietly shelved her animated project. Spotify dropped her podcast deal. Invitations that once arrived weekly have slowed to a trickle. Because in an industry obsessed with optics, Meghan's mask falling mid-flight didn't just expose her, it exposed the people who enabled her. And let's not forget the palace. While King Charles stays quiet and Prince William avoids comment, whispers inside the royal fold have gotten louder. Staff who once called her demanding now call her a liability. One senior aide reportedly said she wanted the crown without the compromise, and when she didn't get it, she decided to burn the entire playbook. That's not a duchess, that's a disruptor, and not the kind that wins applause. But the most devastating consequences, they're not on camera, they're behind closed doors, in the silence between Meghan and Harry, in the distance between Meghan and Doria, in the growing list of people who once called her friend, but now won't return her calls. Because when you build a kingdom out of image, and that image collapses, what's left? A title? A brand? Or just an echo chamber of filtered selfies and staged redemption arcs? And here's the eerie part. As Meghan's image slips, so does Harry's. The man who once stood up to the crown now finds himself standing alone, holding the bag for someone more focused on aesthetics than accountability. Friends say he's lost, isolated, that he's starting to realize the story he helped sell, the fairy tale of the noble duchess fighting against the cold monarchy, might have been more fiction than fact. But here's the problem. Once you've sacrificed your family, your legacy, your homeland to defend someone, what happens when you see the cracks? And what about the baby? That's the line no one wants to cross, but can't stop thinking about. Because if the stories are true, if Archie was treated like a PR prop, like carry-on baggage, like set dressing on a long-haul flight, then it's not just a scandal, it's a tragedy. Crew members are still shaken, still talking, still asking, where was the mother in that moment? Because all the curated photo ops in the world can't cover that silence, that stillness, that alleged absence of even basic maternal instinct. Let's fast forward. Meghan's standing on a stage somewhere, promoting a cookbook, a new lifestyle brand, holding hands with Harry, smiling for the cameras. The lighting is perfect, the voice is calm, the applause is timed. But behind her eyes, what's really there? Guilt, fear, or something worse? The belief that it doesn't matter, that the performance is enough, that as long as she controls the story, the truth can be edited out like a bad headline.
But manages to time every PR move around royal milestones like it's her job.
But here's the plot twist she didn't see coming. People don't forget. Not anymore. The internet never sleeps. And when real people, hardworking crew, staff, moms, assistants, start connecting the dots, the story changes. It's no longer royal drama, it's workplace abuse. It's narcissism in plain sight. It's the slow, methodical erosion of public trust. And that's the one thing no thank you note can restore. And if you think this story ends at 30,000 feet, think again. Because the aftershocks are still coming. More crew are speaking, more ex-friends are breaking ranks, and one source close to an upcoming docuseries hinted, you haven't seen the worst of it yet. That's right, there's more. More footage, more leaks, more people with nothing left to lose and everything to say. Because when the silence breaks, it doesn't stop, it echoes. And here's where things get truly unsettling. According to one insider, Meghan has begun actively monitoring flights, not just for security, but for image risk. They claim her team cross-checks airline staff for potential leaks, that NDAs are distributed before wheels are up, that crew are handpicked for discretion. This isn't about safety, this is about optics, about preventing the next meltdown from going viral. But it's too late, the damage is done. And the illusion of the gracious Duchess is already cracked beyond repair. So now Meghan faces the one battle she can't curate. A war against perception, against memory, against reality. The public has seen too much, heard too much, and no amount of Disneyland trips or royal cursive can undo it. You can buy headlines, you can stage moments, but you cannot erase the way someone made people feel when the cameras were off. And according to those who've been there, Meghan Markle made them feel small. Now, here's the final twist. Behind the silence, behind the whispers, behind the emoji-covered kids, and the staged walks through Montecito Gardens, there's something else happening, a quiet reckoning. With fans, with former staff, with Harry, even with Doria. And it raises the biggest question of all. If the Meghan we've been shown was always an illusion, who is the real Meghan Markle? And if the answer is everything those insiders have said, then what else has she staged? Because here's the brutal truth. You can fly first class, hire the best PR team, print notes in glitter ink, and plaster on a perfect smile, but once the curtain drops mid-flight, you can't unsee what's behind it. Meghan didn't just have a bad travel day, she exposed the foundation of her entire brand, and what people saw wasn't royalty, it was something colder, sharper, more calculated, and the world? They've seen enough now to know that when Meghan Markle boards a flight, she doesn't just bring her luggage, she brings a storm. And no amount of altitude can distance her from that anymore.